Well, why don't we get started? Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business of Design interview series. We're so pleased to mark the 10th anniversary of our CEO, Keith Granet's important book, with this series about where he's been interviewing top designers throughout the year about how they've succeeded in the business of design. So for those of you who may not yet be familiar with Studio Designer, just want to give a brief introduction. Studio Designer is the leading digital project management, product sourcing, and accounting platform for the interior design industry. Our fully integrated platform features an all-in-one project management system, client collaboration portal, product sourcing tools, and designer-specific accounting software. We've been in business for over 30 years, in which we've enabled the world's leading designers to drive efficiency and growth, save time, and deliver beautiful projects. For a little bit of housekeeping, we'll be taking questions near the end of the interview, but if you'd like to submit questions during the conversation, click the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We'll field those questions and then we'll ask them at the end. So today we are so thrilled to welcome Edward Yedid. Edward Yedid is a founding partner at Grade New York. For nearly 20 years, he's found synergy and partnership with the architect Thomas Hickey to establish Grade together by integrating architecture and interior design at the beginning of the design process. Again, we're so thrilled to have Eddie here, and I'm going to turn it over to Keith, and let's get started. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Rachel.
Wish we could.
Welcome, everybody. We're excited to start this process and the interview series again. It's been an exciting time. Studio's growth has been significant. And I think as an industry, it's been fairly significant. And we sort of joke that we're a COVID positive company because everybody needs our software to function these days. And we're glad that our growth has been what it has been. I'm really honored today to have Edward Yedid with me today. Eddie is a principal and founder of Grade New York, a firm that's been around for about 20 years, and they're a fully integrated architectural and interiors practice. They work on very high-end residential projects and also things like yachts and boats, and Eddie will tell you all about that work as we get into our conversation with him. He's also the author of a new book that came out. I think it's been, a year and a half? It's hard to remember because we've all sort of lost a year, but it's a beautiful book that's available online or through Amazon that you should get a copy of. So welcome, Eddie, and glad to have you here.
Good to see you, Keith.
Yeah. So let's just jump into it. So as I said, you're a fully integrated architectural and interiors practice. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
Well, I was studying interior design at Parsons 20 years ago, basically. And Tom was one of my professors in my second to the last semester, and he was opening up an architecture firm. We got on a lot, in class, and there was a very good rapport between the two of us. And he had something I wanted in terms of just, the style, the taste, what he was doing. I was a big fan of architecture. And so I just approached him one day and said, what about working under you or with you on certain projects? I grew up in New York, so I have many, many contacts, and people were starting to approach me while I was still in school to do projects. And knowing the complexity of projects and having worked with an interior designer during my time at school, I knew what it meant in terms of with the organization, the skill, the experience to do things correctly. And having Tom there, I thought that was a great asset for the beginning of my career. But what I never understood was the separation between architecture and interiors, why the architect does this thing and then a decorator or interior designer would come in and then have to make the case to make changes or just fill in the space based on the constraints already given to that, given to them. That didn't make any sense to me. And I like full control. I like things done a certain way. And he also felt the same in the sense that he had done architectural projects where the decorator came and completely missed the vision, missed the point of what he was trying to create on a house. And we thought, well, why don't we start talking about these things from day one? And that's what we've been doing for 20 years. We fully integrate the interior decoration, interior design, circulation, furniture planning, aesthetics into the layout and circulation of a house. We get to start speaking about, size of rooms, how you enter them, and vice versa. We basically want an equal say from all aspects of a project, because at the end of the day, there's no start and stop really. There's a point where both sides should really be affecting the design and creation of any project throughout. And we're starting a project in Aspen right now where we bought a piece of art before we even started any drawings, and for the client. And then that's another aspect of what we do. We do art consulting and accessorizing. We do really full key turn service. So that that's a point right there. What should start a project. So at the end of the day, that's what's worked for us. And I think our clients really love the fact that they can come to us. They have two heads, first of all, thinking about everything. But that whole egotistical thing that happens oftentimes when you have two very, very talented groups working for anybody, the architect and interior designer, or the decorator or the landscape designer, we resolve those things in-house before the client sits in front of us and we tell them what it should look like. So those arguments sort of go away. And I think for the client too, that's easier. They're not calling different teams. It's just a more fluid, more controlled process and more efficient process. And at the end of the day, the vision gets seen through on every aspect of the project holistically. And for us, that's very important.
Well, and making it that holistic, I would imagine, where you can't actually point fingers at each other because you're one company.
And inside the meeting starts, but we don't do that. We have discussions. Tom and I over the years have become absolute best friends. We are like first and last call. We speak about our work and everything else and everything in between together. We run our business together. So, oftentimes you'll see in partnerships where one's the designer, one's running the business end of things. And it's just not the case here. He is in charge of core and shell for the most part, and I handle all interiors of our projects. And we rely on each other for those things, equally. And every other aspect of the business we run together.
So let me ask you about that art piece you bought for the Aspen client. Will that influence the architecture in some way or the design?
Well, when we start a project, we automatically know what things are going to feel like, or what we feel like they should, be like. This is a client we worked with already, and there was an incredible piece by Pierre Soulages. He's a French painter. He's about 101 years old. This is the last show he was ever going to have. And his work is mostly all black paint. And he works with black and how the paint reflects light. And there was a feeling in that painting that just resonated with the mountains and what this project was all about, the layering, the different thicknesses of the paint on the canvas. It just felt right for that project, really for any place, but even more so specifically for this project we're developing in Aspen. So it was an easy decision for everybody.
Right. Because you usually don't hear the project starts with a painting, but obviously if you know the client, you know the vision for the project, then that makes sense.
I mean, it started with the site, and it started with the fact that it's going to be in Aspen, but yeah, it's not typical for us to buy a painting that early, but we knew that it was the right thing.
Yeah, very cool. So thinking about your interiors and your work, I know that, and knowing you well, that you don't typically buy off the shelf. You like to customize a lot of the product you buy. How easy or difficult is it when to convince a client that you're going to build something for them versus, buying something from a showroom or off the shelf?
Well, first of all, I don't want to have to feel like I have to convince a client to do anything. I think that part of our process is making them feel so involved and so part of the story we're telling that we design specifically for them, that it's obvious why this particular piece or that particular piece is the right solution for the story that we're telling them. And it's not that we don't love some of the things that you can find at the D&D, because we use them as well. It's just that to create a unique project, I think you have to go beyond that. You have to use your unique experiences. I travel a ton my entire life, and that's influenced my tastes. I'm in Europe a lot. So not only that we do custom pieces of our own, because oftentimes we need a specific solution for that project. We also want our clients to have unique pieces that nobody else has. So that's part of the drive. I love designing furniture, that fits with the ethos of who we are and what we care about. So that's just exciting as well. And we've been doing it since day one. So we're actually in the process of putting together our own collection, which will be out in whatever many years, whenever I'm happy about it. And we want to But all of our projects are a mix of custom pieces, vintage pieces, and contemporary works, from contemporary artists and contemporary designers. And I think that mix creates a nice, eclectic, robust, interesting solution for any client. Whatever the style is, it's irrelevant. It's not one specific style. The idea is to know what designers to choose based on the look you're creating.
So when you are making all the custom products that you make, are you using European manufacturers, American manufacturers, all the above? How do you go about finding those resources?
I think you have to choose the vendor that's going to be able to give you the best product that they can get. So sometimes that's in France, sometimes that's in Italy, sometimes that's right across the river. And typically, I like to do upholstery where close to home. Some really wonderful vendors that we work with. Some from Europe that have, opened up their own shops here, and some really great local vendors here that are experts as well. Only because sit tests happen often, and you need to typically go 2, 3, sometimes 4 times to get things right, and you want to be able to see and understand the nuances of the upholstery. So I like to do those things here. But case goods, cabinets, tables, stone pieces, wood pieces, things like that, we can design them here and have them built. And we actually have a factory in Italy where we produce a lot of our custom millwork or more complicated custom furniture pieces. And I just go there 2, 3 times a year, so I keep on checking as we're there. But it's easier with those case pieces.
I think I recall that you may have done this more than once, but we've actually built a whole room, with paneling and case goods in Europe, and then had it shipped and installed here. Is that true?
Yeah, we still do that. There's when the project allows for it, oftentimes, and we do that even here too. What we'd like to do is see a room fully built out. So let's just say it's a library or a kitchen. That has a lot of millwork or paneling. We actually have the vendors put it all together in their show or in their workshop, and we go and see it in its raw state, fully built out to scale, so we can open things and close things and look at our details. And this way we can make adjustments with the client there. Sometimes they come with us. If it's in Italy, we have clients that fly with us to our factory, and we touch and see things. And it's much easier for them to understand than when it's installed, and that they're upset because they didn't realize what they were getting. And it's a better way for us to really also look at things and make any adjustments we want to before it goes into finishing. So whenever that's a possibility, we definitely strive to do that.
Oh, great. So I do recall many years ago, you and I walking through the Paris flea market and knowing, and just watching, who you knew, how to find things, your tremendous knowledge of that. I know your work tends to be, fairly modern and contemporary. Do you use antiques still a lot in your projects?
I would have to say vintage, because antiques over 100 years, if I'm correct. And typically our stuff is within the last 100 years. So sometimes 20s, 30s, but mostly mid-century stuff from all over Europe. Sometimes, in Scandinavia, mostly. How does that work? I mean, I've lived in Paris when I was 20. I have many friends there. I go to Paris 2-3 times a year. It's one of my favorite cities, obviously for design, for influence, for furniture, the galleries, the art, all of the above. And I started going to the flea markets, and you start to make relationships, you start to purchase things, you start to realize who you should work with and who not to work with, especially in the flea markets. There's certain guys that are, great, and certain people who are selling the wrong things, and copies and things like that. And you got to know what to look for. And that's really just takes experience and seeing things over and over. Part of the knowledge also comes from going to auctions. So I go to all the auctions all over the world, furniture auctions at Phillips, at Sotheby's, Christie's. When you see the real thing over and over again, when you're seeing something fake. Right. My eye does, I see every little nuance of everything. It's part of being a designer.
So the key word there is vintage, not antique.
Yes, vintage, yes. But I think, we always pick the pieces that, I like cool stuff in general. I like edgy stuff. I like stuff by designers that disrupted what was going on at that time. So they were doing something absolutely brand new and cool at the period. And I think that creates longevity in terms of timelessness with those pieces. So, and then it's just knowing all those different designers and saying, okay, who would be a great fit for this feel that we're creating in this apartment. Let's look at this designer versus the other one, because of the style of their furniture, the materials they're using, the textures, the curves of the piece, or the more rigidity of the piece. It all fits into the story we're telling.
Great.
And you just go to, showrooms in New York, you're limited by that. I'd rather go to, a buffet than just one restaurant. Design. I think much more.
Right. So switching gears for a second, let's talk about Studio for a second. You've been a long time user of Studio.
Yeah.
How do you feel that it has helped your office from an efficiency standpoint?
Well, okay, efficiency is one of the most important things in the world to me. Organization is. I don't know how I could be successful in this business without those two factors being at the highest level throughout our design process, throughout our execution process. So you really need a program or some sort of format to take all the information that we're constantly being given and put it into a system that then I can see the results from. So, I can get a sense of how much time people are working on projects. We can get us, manage all the different furniture pieces and put them into proposals for our clients and track orders and all these different types of things that allows us to be successful, because it's great to design and all that, but if you can't execute, it's a failure. Anybody, not that anybody could be a designer, but to be a successful business in this industry, you have to execute as well as you design. And Studio Designer is an excellent tool for us to manage all the bits and pieces that go into our projects and timelines and making sure things are done effectively.
Yeah, I've been teaching or guest lecturing at UCLA for probably 20 years. And so one thing I tell the students is, like, even though you may have a passion for interior design, just know that probably 20% of your work will be design. The other 80% is going to be everything from running a business to moving product around to client negotiations and sales. The design part of it, although obviously very important, is a minor part of the whole picture of running a business.
I would say 20% is a perfect percentage. I actually use all the time as well. It's management. That's like a business. Managing people, personalities, vendors, contractors. It's a lot of parts. And not only does Studio allow us to put all those things into a nice, clean format and get information quickly, it does it in a very pretty way, which is another aspect of design. I think to be successful as well as everything needs to be beautiful in our business. From the presentations you make in your office to the proposals you send out. As much clarity as you can offer, it makes it much easier for the end user. And they're faster to make decisions, they're faster to pay for proposals, and I think that's in everybody's best interest.
Well, I certainly know that about you and the firm, and that everything is sort of meticulously thought out, from just what letterhead looks like to your design. So I think it's that ethos is what makes you guys who you are. If you think about sort of, I know that in your process, you like to use sort of mood boards or image boards in presenting. If Studio had a tool like that, do you think you would use it? And if so, what would make it efficient and work well for you?
Well, since we already use it, and it was a way to, purchase furniture pieces or track furniture pieces with clients like faster. I think it could be a great tool as long as we have the ability to have full control of the aesthetics of that mood board. So, if there were enough different formats that fit within our setup that felt like, the organization that we do in-house, I think it'd be a great tool.
Our goal is that allowing you to have a very strong presentation tool, which could include drawings and imagery and inspiration, but also real pieces that if a client said, I love it, and all you had to do is click on it, it would then go into Studio to create a proposal. That's the type of tool integration that we're thinking of. So
sure, our team members here would love that. I don't even know how to turn on Studio.
I know.
No.
We hear that all the time, but that's why you have, strong staff. You can't do what?
I use email, and that's basically mine. Yeah.
And Instagram. So I mentioned that you have this new book out that's absolutely beautiful. How has that helped, do you think, with your practice, having the book?
Well, it's websites are great, Instagram is great as well, because there's a level of control of information that people see. Nothing is as controlled as a book. You can't move things around. People just basically go through it. So what's nice about it is people get a very in-depth look at your work, and you get to show it in the way you want and tell the story you want to tell. So from that aspect, it gives people a real insight into who we are, how we design our story, and the differences between our projects. We don't have necessarily a specific look that's consistent. There's a process that's certainly consistent. And our book is a great tool for our clients to see all that. So that's one aspect. Secondly, when we have new client meetings, oftentimes we get referrals and the clients haven't even seen our website. So we always have a book on the table, and we can refer to the book and show them different things or different ideas and solutions that we've already done in the past during those meetings, which is always very helpful to just be able to point to something. And it also establishes, I think, credibility as well. I think that's very important, when you're competing against some other great teams out there. Any leg up is definitely going to be very helpful.
Yeah. I definitely think it definitely raises the bar from a credibility standpoint, but also I imagine it's a pretty powerful tool when a client starts talking about maybe the vision or showing you your work or other work and you can turn to it and say, well, here's a project in our book that you may relate to. Yeah. I think that type of connectivity starts building a relationship with the client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. So speaking of books, in my new book, you're quoted as saying that Instagram's been a great exposure for you to reach potential clients. And, my question, I guess, is that how do you find that Instagram or other social media channels have actually helped bring potential clients to you?
Well, Instagram is great because people are addicted to it and they're on it every day. And, you know, we have about 18,000 followers. So, you know, anytime we want to put out information, you know, we have a large number of people seeing that information. And it's not to say that they're all going to be potential clients, because that's not the case. But there are a lot of potential clients who are following you, and over the course of time, they're starting to see everything you're about, and it keeps you fresh in their minds when it's time for their project. So I think that in itself is great. People aren't going to run to your website as often as they are in Instagram, and oftentimes they never look at your website. So it's a great way for you to connect with people, share information, have a dialogue. You know, there's a lot of contact, this messaging, this is direct messaging. And so there's all sorts of forms of communication that I think are great, and it's allowed us to grow our business. I think every single client in recent years has said, we follow you, we've been watching your work on Instagram, love it, you know, let's talk. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, it's certainly a great way to control the message of what you want people to see, but also you can expand it beyond just showing your work. It's like what inspires you, and things that the traditional sort of print publications couldn't do in the past. I mean, they were highly edited and, you know, curated by a point of view, where you can actually have your own voice through social media.
Yeah, I mean, between the stories and the actual posts, yeah, you know, like we were promoting this conversation. You know, where else are you going to do that? You know, when we're doing we have an Instagram handle just for our furniture. We have an Instagram handle for our art as well, so people can see the different aspects of our projects. And I think it's just been very helpful. We can
actually, that's a question. What's
that?
Know,
get great feedback of what people love most, and when you're promoting your work, you know what images to show. That's also helpful.
Exactly. So speaking of art, do you find that the attraction to art, it seems like over the last decade, you know, it's become more and more important to people, and the investment in art has been pretty significant. Have you seen that in your projects through the years?
Well, I've been buying art since I'm 20. So going over 20 plus years, and I've seen the industry change a lot because it's become much more accessible. So it used to be a very private thing, you know, it was all done in person. There was handshakes, there was, you know, you go to the galleries, you go to the shows, you go to the auctions, and it was a smaller world. And you've seen in the recent years it explode because of the internet, because everything going online. The exposure to things. So anybody could jump online and go to an online auction or see anything online and be exposed and bid from their, you know, computers, where that wasn't the case before. So I think it's brought a huge amount of new buyers into the industry, which is certainly great because the cost of art has gone up because of it. The demand's there, and I don't think that the supply is any different than it was before, because at the end of the day, there's only so much talent out there. But it does allow for certain artists to get recognized who might have not otherwise get recognized because of the amount of people that are still that are now currently buying art and interested in art.
Do you think that because the demand is so high that the value is still aligned with? I mean, usually, you know, demand follows value, but sometimes it can get inflated because they're just, you know, people are willing to outbid each other just to grab a piece. Do you think the value will hold?
Depends on the artist.
Right.
It depends on the artist and how the artist is marketed. Depends on the gallery that supports them. There's a lot of factors of the market, like any other. But there's, you know, they're all unique pieces, right? So at the end of the day, there's only so much of certain people's work, and those artists that are in demand, the price will always go up.
Do you look for new talent to help promote in what you try to sell for your clients?
To promote the artist?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you have to believe in the artist, but
I listen. If I like something, I like something. If I love something, I share with those that I like, and I can There's some artists where we understand the market because there's already a market established, and I can tell our client, listen, you know, I'm getting you a primary price on a certain artist. We know the secondary market, you can sell it for 30% more, 100% more, whatever it might be. And then there's other artists that are younger that all I could say is I absolutely love it and I believe in them because of the following reasons. You know, you have to feel the same way. So I introduce people to the things that I love, and I tend to go for artists that are sophisticated, that, you know, create work that's very hard to create, right? There's a real art behind what they're doing. And, you know, that for me has longevity, you know, at the end of the day, you know, complexity, quality, and beauty.
Great. Okay. So I know that travel is important to you, and you've said that, and you gain great inspiration. Tell us how you navigate sort of going to a new city, finding those resources that are in that city.
Well, let's start with my time in Paris. I mean, I started living in Paris for about 6 months when I was about 20 years old. So I was very familiar with the city and comfortable with the city. And as I got into design and started buying furniture for clients, you know, whatever it is that drew me to Europe still draws me to Europe. I think it's the culture. I think it's the high level of design taste that's in Paris. You know, it's in the blood. it's you know, it's part of the culture, and I'm drawn to it. So I started going to the areas that I knew the furniture was being sold. So in Paris and Saint-Germain, you know, and I just walk. That's what I do in all these cities. I walk around. I walk into shops. I create relationships, and I do it. You know, I'm in Europe 2-3 times a year, and that's how I've established an interest and a knowledge and the relationship I've had over the years with these galleries, and that, you know, that flows into London, and it goes into Italy or any other city I'm in. So typically, you know, if I go to any new city, I was just in Greece. I learned that they have these beautiful ceramics on a little island called Sifnos. So I went there for the day and traveled up into the mountains and rode half an hour just to go to one little factory to see their ceramics. And it was beautiful. And now I have this contact. You know, I was told through, and I'm always discussing design with designers, with clients, with, you know, all different people. So when you speak about something you love all the time, you hear and you learn, and that's part of the process. You know, that happened in Comporta, you know, when we go in Italy too, you know, there's so much great stuff. So I think the love and interest really engages you to figure out and find what you're looking for. If you love anything, you're, at least from my perspective, I'm never satisfied. So I always want more, and I'm always looking for something new. And you know me well enough, you know, I'm never 100% satisfied with anything. So that's how you grow as a designer. That's how you become better. And that's how you challenge yourself. And that goes with resources too. You're only as good as your knowledge and the resources you have to work with. So that's why travel is such an important element. And also the artists, not just artists that do paintings and sculpture. There's artists in our world that do specialty finishes and specialty millwork and things like that we also bring into our projects, which is always great to learn from as well.
You know, I believe that we all should be living a life of learning and growing. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's like you're always hungry for exploration and finding things and researching. And it's part of that. Anything that you have a passion for, you would tend to do that. You would always want to see what's next and what's new, but not from a trend standpoint, but really from just pure resources that you may not know existed in the past.
Yeah, I don't like the word trend at all.
No.
You know, but I love beautiful things. I've just always loved the quality of things, the textures, just all of it, and not only those items, but the surroundings and where they're found and the people around them and the culture that inspired them. So for me, travel is super important, and it influences how we design constantly.
Right. Well, you know, so go back to Instagram and also tying in your love for beautiful things. I remember seeing a post that you posted um, where you were at Carpenter's Workshop at the factory outside of Paris, and was asking you about that. And you were saying that, you know, this is an amazing place and product. And I really, at that point, had not really heard of them. And through that, you introduced me to the owners, and we were able to do a Leaders of Design tour of both the factory and the showroom in Paris. And what I was blown away with was finding these young, talented, you know, designers who were doing, you know, whether it was metal work or glass blowing or carvings, that they found people who had a passion for it, this craft that we, you know, at that age, you wouldn't think you'd find that many apprentices. And it's an amazing place. So I think the connection between your travel, posting on Instagram, and also just your sort of broad knowledge of beautiful things brought all that together. So I think it's very cool. And again, the value it adds to get that kind of exposure through even a social media channel.
Yeah, no, and then what's great about these, you know, these contemporary design artists, they make basically what industry's now termed as design art, because you can sit in it and it's functional art basically. But you can collaborate with these guys. You know, a lot of these, you know, they're all accessible to young people, varying ages actually. But you know, there's a lot of great artists that we can sit there and say, hey, you know, could we do something like this? I love what you did here, but let's do something different. And out comes something absolutely new and wonderful. And again, that's that unique quality that we can bring to our projects. That separates us.
Terrific. So last question before we open it up to our audience. Are there any projects or products that you haven't had the opportunity to design that you would like to do?
I would love to do a boutique hotel. That would be a great experience. I think it would take in everything that we do here, but it also do it in a public venue, which I think would allow us to expose our work to people who might not see it. I say boutique because we still get to do something very specific. It's not for the masses. It would be something, you know, driven based on the parameters of that specific location or the intent of that project, which I think is our strength. Taking in, you know, everything that we've done for our private clients, but just expanding that into a public level. So that's something fun. We've done, you know, private jet for a client. We're working with another client on one of their yachts, but it was more of a decoration thing. So another great project for us, I think, would be to design a brand new yacht with a client. You know, all the interior architecture and decoration and design. That'd be exciting because there's new challenges that we have to face, and for me, that's fun.
You know, I would think with a boutique hotel, again, it's a great calling card so that someone could say, you know, giving you great exposure to potential clients, but also because so much of your work is for that sort of high net worth client that may not actually ever show their house to anybody, and no one ever gets to see the work, but suddenly you now have exposure to your work that you wouldn't normally have. Yeah. So if you were to pick a location that you could do a boutique hotel, where do you think you'd pick?
Now that I just got back from Antiparos, I would say because I just had an extremely wonderful experience there, and it's definitely influenced my thinking about things lately. We're working on a project in Jerusalem too. That's really special. You know, something in Israel could be really fun too.
What were you saying? You're like,
it would end up being like a New York-centric project. You know, I think the first one ended up being something like that because I think we're known for that kind of level of quality. But we'll see. Our clients tend to take us all over the place. You know, it could be one of our developer clients who's doing a hotel that just thinks we're gonna nail it, and they'll bring us in. We'll see. It's not something that I want to go after. I think it's something that I would rather someone come to us and say, we think you're the right person for this.
Right. Yeah, I have found that from my clients that the projects that they get outside of their sort of normal daily work is usually a client that says, I just bought, this office, or I endowed a school and I need you to do this building. It comes from somebody who you're already connected with versus just going out and trying to compete with everybody else doing hotels. So that makes complete sense to me. Great. So Rachel, do we have questions for Eddie?
Yes, we have a couple. First is from Ben. Edward, I love the daring contemporary style of your interiors. Who are your main inspirations, and who or what would you say is sort of an unexpected source of inspiration for you?
So I think some of my contemporaries, Joseph Durand, Kieran Ivanovich, to name a couple. I love their ability to define the architectural environment around the furniture aspect of their projects, and they're integrated fully, and that's what I care about most as well. In school, I used to also look at Shelton Mindell. Lee Mindell is also very brilliant at that aspect. These guys all work on architecture, interior decoration, art. So for me, it's not that it's their style, but it's just the way they think is similar to what we do too. And I think those would be a few of those people. What was the second part of the question? I forgot.
If you have one, who or what is an unexpected source of inspiration?
My wife is an unexpected source of inspiration. Actually, she's a designer as well, but she actually helped me when we met about 6 years ago. I was definitely doing more sleek stuff, maybe a bit more masculine. And she's much more whimsical and soft, and I think she helped me enjoy other things. She even introduced me to some artists that I didn't know about as well. But I've gotten to more textural stuff, more calmer solutions, things like that.
We should share this with her.
I will.
Another question from Susan. I love your new book, New York Contemporary. What is it about New York in particular that informs and inspires your work?
Well, I'm from New York. I'm from Manhattan. I grew up here. I think there's an edginess to New York that you also tend to see in our solutions as a bit of a cool factor. The book is New York Contemporary also because all the projects in the book were projects in Manhattan, and what it was able to. The other aspect is New York changes from every 20 blocks. It's a different feel. It's a different culture. Different people want to live there because their values are different, and our book reflected that. So we had 7 projects in 7 areas, showing how we design for specific clients with different tastes and different values. So our project down in Tribeca felt a certain way because of what Tribeca is all about. An Upper East Side project felt different as well because the culture there is different. So that's what's great about New York, because you have to bring all of those different things together and manage them and come up with solutions that are specific to our clients in those separate areas. But there's also New York. We do things at a certain level here. The expectation here is huge, high. The efficiency, the competition is high, and I think all those things drive you to be better. If you're not the best here, you really don't succeed. And I think that's really important in terms of being successful at business.
Right.
So New York's not just a melting pot of people, but a melting pot of design.
It is. I mean, in terms of the United States, I think it's the most culturally significant in terms of design. Obviously, there's other cities that have caught on, but being so close to Europe and being the first stop from Europe, I think that obviously that's part of the reason, and it is, there are so many people from all over the world here. It's influenced obviously design within the city, the museums, the culture, all that stuff. So I was lucky to be born and raised in Manhattan and influenced by it. But you know, it's funny, when you grow up, you're around so many successful people, you know, and you, at least for me, you put that on yourself. You expect to do that well, and there's a pressure that you kind of give yourself. And I think that's also part of why, you know, we've done well too, because the idea of failing really doesn't enter your mind. So you're constantly being challenged by the demands of New York, the clients. I mean, there's smart, tough people surrounded by you. So you tend to step up. And I think that makes for, you know, a successful business.
Great.
So I think we have time for one more. This is from Lisa. Thank you so much for taking time to share with us. What was your most challenging project to date and why?
Most challenging project. We are working on a very special project right now in Manhattan, where we have a client who bought a townhouse that will not be used to live in. It's a townhouse being designed as an entertainment space. Basically, the whole building is turned into sort of a private club for his clients, where he can entertain them in various ways. So we're basically taking a building and creating different environments for different activities, like tequila bar, or there's a cigar room, there's a conference room, there's a dining room, there's a spa, there's also different types of great spaces. And we had to make it all work together so it didn't feel like Disneyland, but also make the rooms feel special in and of themselves. So creating an architectural language that could thread through the project, that could keep things tied together, but also creating specialized rooms on every floor, and circulation and the use of space has been very interesting. You know, there's a lot of technical aspects in terms of sound. You know, there's conference rooms, and there's podcasting rooms, and there's a music room, and you know, all these things are very technical, and so working around that aspect was also a challenge, designing around those things. But I think that has been a great, fun, exciting challenge, and it's being done at a very, very high level. So executing it, and we did this during Corona, so that was the other challenge, because we started the design process in February of 2020, and we got knee deep into it in March and April and May when we were working remotely. So there was the challenge of managing the designs, working with everybody in the office, you know, from home, and presenting to our clients and getting things done. So we lost a lot of sleep, let's put it that way. But it made us better at working remotely, which, you know, is a subject for another conversation. But there are some advantages to it. But of course, in design, there's nothing better than being around a table with everybody.
Absolutely agree. It sounds like a fascinating project. Is it solely for the use of the client and their friends?
Clients, the client's clients. He's in the entertainment arena.
Okay.
He's entertaining, you know, really wonderful talent from all over the place. But a lot of times they're famous people, and so creating an environment where you can go to privately with these people and host events, or host one-on-one meetings, or jam on the guitar with, you know, some musician, or, you know, whatever it is, was a very important part to his business. And this was planned before Corona. So this was not only a smart idea then, but it only became that much more important now, because you're now, you know, being able to entertain in a safe environment as well, and a controlled environment. So, you know, we're in construction now. We're about a year away from it being.
Okay. Very cool.
One more question, and Keith, it's for you. It's from Ella. Keith, you actually mentioned your new book. Is it available now?
It is some shameless promotion here, I guess, but it's available on Amazon, and actually it's exciting because it's also first time it's an audiobook. So you can actually listen to it through Audible. And it's a revised and updated version of the first book, The Business of Design. And there are comments throughout the book. Eddie happens to be one of those that talks about what has changed over the last 10 years, but there's 45 new pages and almost every word has been rewritten to accommodate the world we live in today. And it was written during the pandemic, so I talk about all of that as well. Well, Eddie, this has been great. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and to hear, what you're up to, your story, and how Grade's become so successful. I personally feel privileged to get to work with you on a regular basis. And so thank you for that. And thank you for your support of Studio.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.